Hi guys, and welcome back here to the development. Today we carry on our series, and if you guys remember what we did in the last episode is that we set up the inventory list and we created this new function called item add. All right, so before we can actually implement the whole adding bit, we need to create some kind of an interaction with our player. So the player has to be able to interact with items to pick them, similar to like when you touch an item and then the item is available, so you can actually catch the item and store in the inventory. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to go back to our master inventory. I'm going to right click and I'm going to create here blueprints. All right, now in the blueprints I'm going to create an actor called BP base item picker. Right, it's going to be a base item picker. And normally what we like to do is to add a sphere, or actually I'm going to add a cube. Would be nice. So the cube would be our, let's say, I'll add it as a default mesh. We may need to change this because some items you may need to change things around and that, but we're just gonna call this the main mesh. And now here I'm gonna add a sphere collision because I would like to this be based on sphere collision. This size I'm gonna do 320, and for now I'm gonna just hide in game. I'm just gonna disable that, and I'm gonna drag and drop, let's say right here, and press play. So every time around this area, I should be able to interact with this item, maybe by pressing E or by pressing some kind of information. But anyway, now the next thing that we need to be able to do here is two things that we need to add on this, right? Is that what item does this can add, and how much is the quantity? Because realistically you just need those two informations: what is the item and how much of this item you want to get. So for example, now we need to add two new variables. So the first one is going to be here the item itself, and here's going to be data table row handle. Make sure it's public, and make sure that you put a category inside, let's say items, and replicate it. Actually, inventory will be a better way to call that. Now we're going to call here the quantity, which is how much is the quantity of this item that you want to give to the player. In this case it's going to be integer, public, and I'm just going to make sure it's replicated as well, just in case this is spawn or something. Anyway, now so for example, this item here we will add apple, right? So it's going to be item. So I'm just gonna make sure that the apple is always default, and I'm gonna save everything, compile and save this guy here, right? Nice. Now the quantity, it's gonna be, maybe you can even change this to 1, to be honest. And anyway, so this guy will now give item, right? So what we need to do here, the best way to do it is to pass the object reference to the inventory here through the player, so things can actually happen. So for example, how can we actually, let's say, do the interaction, and how can we do this kind of setup, right? So on the BPC inventory on here, what I would like to do is to add, let's say, the player controller. So I'm going to create here the player controller, right? And here's going to be a player controller. That's it. And before we do this, what I would like to do that is that I'm going to create here a custom event called API start inventory, and this, it's going to be called on the client. Okay, and this, we're going to be basically passing the player controller. So player controller, I hate when I do that on Unreal. Controller. Anyway, and now this is going to be a player controller, which is fine. the object reference, and I'm going to explain what I'm going to do here. So from here, I'm just going to call this dash client because I know what is running. I'm going to create a custom event, call the same one, but this is going to be server. Okay. Now I'm just going to add here a capital to make sure it's nice to follow. Now this is going to be the same, the player controller. This is going to be running on the server and must be replicates, right? So the client will call something on the server. And because we're kind of using the player, let's say, controller, this should work on the server. The reason why I'm doing this is because we may want to add multiplayer support to this, right? And now I'm going to copy and paste here, and I'm going to add multicast, right? Multicast. And then multicast means is that it will replicate to every single people on the server, so the server knows what you're trying to do. Basically, what we're trying to do is that we're calling something on the client that will be authenticated by the server that will replicate to everyone using the multicast thing. We may be able to cut some steps, but I'm not entirely sure which one do we have to do. But anyway, now we're going to set the player reference, and we are going to load the inventory. Now, what happened here is that, we need now to go back to our, let's say, maybe we should be able to get the, get owner. What we should be able to do here, get class, get component by class. Maybe we should be able to find the player. Maybe we can get controller. Maybe we can do that. Let's just try here to see what is going to happen here. So if well, we don't have an AI controller. Get player. Well, anyway, I don't have access to that. I'm trying to do this in a nice way, but anyway, let's just go back to the player itself, right? So where we use on the player master inventory, master RPG, character here, character types, player, and the player controller. Let's open up here the player controller. Now, what we're going to do here on the player controller is that we call this method here called API start, and we just pass the reference of self. I will see if I can find a better way to do this, but this will work anyway. This will be doable to do it anyway. So this happened, blah blah blah, and now what happened is that it prints and then it say hello because we're trying to load this data. Now that we have all this stuff added and everything is looking great, what we can do here is that when the player touch this field, if he has that component attached to the controller, we can actually see if he has, we can use the widgets to interact. So what I can actually do here is that I could basically go to the graph and go to the sphere, and on the begin overlap, what I can actually do here is that we get other actor. So in this case, what I can do here is just print the other actor information. So I can go back and say, you see, master character, which is fine. Get controller or get components, get class by name, controller. Do we have a controller? Well, in this case, let me see if I can. Well, what you can do here, something a little bit more, not super complicated, but what I can do here is that I'm gonna open up, let's say, the master RPG character, which is the one that has the inventory, right? And what I can do is go to my inventory here, and on the blueprints, on the here, I'm going to create a new interface, and I'm just going to create interface. I'm going to call this BPI pawn inventory, right? And pawn inventory. Anyway, that's fine. Now here we're going to call is BPI return inventory ref. It's a huge name. Basically, this will return the component, so the inventory. And what's going to do here is that we're going to search for BPC inventory, this one. And now look how cool is this. We can go back to our character, we can go to class settings and add the interface, right? So we can search for that BPI and pawn inventory. Now here we have a new item to implement, and here is gonna basically ask to return the inventory. So what I can do here is that I can get the controller, right? At this point, I would need to probably cast this controller, but like, we can actually create another interface here. So we're gonna be very performance efficient. So we're gonna create here another interface, and this one, it's gonna be BPI controller inventory. Nice. And here we are gonna basically create no, controller, yeah, the same. Okay, I think they are, yeah, they return the same, that's fine. Now what happened is that I want to open up the player controller, go to the settings, and I want to add another interface called BPI controller ref, right? And here I do that, right? So what I can do here, just to make the item, just to make things less confusing, I'm gonna just change the name, and I'm gonna call this inventory blah blah blah, and I'm gonna call this controller, right? I'm just gonna add that little touch to make it easy for us to identify if this comes from a player or where it comes from. Anyway, so on the controller side we're all set. Now on the player side here, because we have the controller, we can just do this instead of casting, and that will just return our inventory. Now that's pretty much everything that we need to do. Now look at this. We can go back to our inventory, the picker, and we can call this not a controller one, but we can call this, I'm probably gonna change the name as well, guys, just to make sure that we know what we're trying to do here. So this relates to the player, so it's gonna be pawn. Okay, pawn is what you play, and the controller is what it controls everything. Okay, just in case you guys are not aware. So if I would have time to explain, if I would to explain here, basically the control, so you have two steps. You have the game instance, then you have the player controller, and then you have the pawn, which is actually the player, right? Is the little guy that you play. So this is what controls the game instance. Things like the player has joined match, things like this. So this is the player controller that actually controls your health. And this is what it registers the damage. So when you get damage, it basically tells the controller. And then when you die, it tells the game instance, and then you get deleted. For example, right? Let's say if you're trying to create it's just one of many examples. But anyway, now I can do a print, and I can check if I have an inventory, which I should. You see, everything is working fine. Now I can basically do it's valid, because I only want to do actions here if things are valid, and because I already have the inventory, let's say, information right here, I can just call add fn add item, right? And then of course here we would need to get the item from the row handle, which we don't. So what I'm going to do here is basically I'm going to create a macro. What is it? Macro. I'm going to create a macro called get item, right? And now here I'm going to get the item, and I'm basically going to get row or get, sorry, get row, data table row. Plug this one right here, right? At this point, I need to get the item itself, right? We're gonna break it, and we're just gonna get the item name, right? And here, if it's found, it does X. If it's not found, it does Z, and then you just return the item here, auto row. It's a good solution to do this. It's also nice for you to try to handle errors as well, but in this case, we're just gonna assume that exist. So what happened here, it's that we also need to pass the quantity. I forgot about this. On this function, we need to add the quantity. This may need to be changed when we start to replicate, but for now it will be fine. So we're gonna add here the item to add quantity. All right, now we're gonna add this one right here. We're gonna plug this value right there, which is great. And then we assume it like here. And now we basically in here, actually, you know what, guys, this it's not required because I completely forgot about this stuff. Because on here, when we add the item, right, so we get the item, we can actually break this. Or what you can do here is that you can set member, and you can set the quantity. The quantity will come from here. So you do this, and then you just transfer the item right here, right? And then after, you can just basically do stuff like, for example, has the item been added? So if I go back there, true, true, and then true. So it keeps adding the item here multiple times. So now just to give us some visibility, what I would like to do here is that once the items are all added, I'm just going to do another for each loop. Just for you guys to see the visibility of this, right? So we're going to just do a print here. This stays the same. You don't have to do this. It's just to make sure that we get all the items added properly. So we get the name, right? For example, right now, we added true, 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 true. Well, is this actually working? You say that it is working, but we got the item ref. So I'm just gonna do a print here because I would like to know. Oh yeah, I want to break here, and I want to just get this lot ID. I just want to see if it keeps increasing, you know. It should. 1, 1, 1, 1. So that it's full, but it's not changing. So item it's added, it's full. So if it's false, you're resetting the member. You know what? I think, unfortunately, this it's not the way that's supposed to work. What we're gonna have to do here, it's that we're gonna basically have to add now we're gonna have to basically, it's not set a member. I think I have a idea what's going on. So basically, what we need to do here is that we need to get a reference based on the index, and then you do that. Okay. And then what we can do here is print the slot ID, and then if that works, I'll explain you guys what happened there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, this is working. So basically, the reason why I have to do this is just because when you set the member, you're basically setting an object in memory. You're not setting actually the reference of this. So that's why we have to use the index to actually proper do the search. That's why I am thinking that I may need to save this index to proper search this. Otherwise, it will make it harder for us. But anyway, we can actually do that in the next lesson. Just so things don't get too long, what I'm going to do here is just going to do a for each, get the item here, and do a print. And the same thing I was trying to do before, right? So I'm just going to break this, break the item. You don't have to do this. I just want to show you guys how this thing it's actually working. So right now, if I go back, so I get 1 item, 2 apples, 3 apples, 4 apples, and it keeps going forever. Right? And one thing that you can actually test, no, I think that's fine. I think that's everything working for this. That's everything I wanted to achieve here. So once again, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I see you in the next tutorial.